Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Psychic Medium Raymond Guzman, and today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be giving psychic insight, not so much a reading. There will be some elements of reading and also reviewing a new show on Netflix. Some people would call it a reboot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which was a very popular show, I think, in the early, well, not early, but maybe late 90s, early 2000s when it still is out somewhere. You can still see it online, I believe, or if you go to Hulu, I think there may be somewhere where you can catch up with that show if you haven't. I grew up in the 90s, and so I was very familiar. Melissa Joan Hart was the actress or the character. For those of you that would be listening to this and maybe are not aware of who Melissa Joan Hart is, she's a wonderful actress, and she played Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and basically she was a witch, leaving a good witch, living with her aunt Hilda and Zelda, and she had her familiar, which was Salem, her black cat, and she had her boyfriend Harvey and her friends, and she was in high school, and basically it kind of like chronologically follows her life through and all of her magical abilities and what she would use it. That show had a lot more light to it. It was more fluffy, more it wasn't, I feel like it was more fairy tale. Like, it's not the real world of that we're living in now in society, as far as that is concerned. So now that I am, I've been in tune with my psychic abilities and my spiritual abilities, but I also have a witchy side to myself that but as a white witch, that I like to explore, and finding out more about myself, and what magic is all around us. And so I'm very interested into the things of and the Wiccan things, like candle magic and herbs. And I believe it's all behind the intent. I don't see witches as a bad thing, being a witch, because a lot of people were witches in their past life. I was one in my past life. So as long as you use it for the greater good, and you use it to spread love and light, there's a lot of witches that may take it to a darker place and use it for revenge and whatnot. And that's part of like human nature. People who are not witches that would be listening to this would be thinking, well, they're automatically evil. All witches are evil. There's nothing good about being a witch. But in many ways, people who go out and they take revenge, trying to get revenge on someone who has hurt them, they may not use incantations or recite words or use herbs, or everything that you see in Hollywood sometimes is a little misconstrued and taken out of context. It portrays, I guess, this has to do also with psychics. It's always portrayed people that are psychics, as a gypsy with a turban on their head, or, some kind of, big earrings on their ears, and, they have a big crystal ball, and they're like in the back of a wagon, doing fortune telling. So I feel like, in many ways that the world of the paranormal and the world of witches and is something that we've seen quite a bit. There has been shows like over time, like the Charmed ones, Charmed, and then now a reboot of Charm, and now we have Sabrina. When it came to seeing Charmed, the reboot, I didn't feel the connection immediately to it. I'm still kind of on the fence with it. I feel like they're good, at what they do, and there is a connection. But when it came to the chilling adventures of Sabrina, and the actress, I'm gonna try to pronounce her name, Kiernan Shipka. I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I apologize in advance. But she's a great actress. I feel like she embodies the original Sabrina in many ways, but the show's a lot different. The theme, for those of you that, I'm not going to give too much detail for those, because I don't want to spoil it for those of you that maybe haven't seen the show yet but want to see it. There is a lot of darker themes in it, but I feel like in a way it connects me more to the Charmed, Charmed, the original series, and I feel like there's a strong connection there, even though it's not about three sisters and the chilling adventures of Sabrina. But the theme overall is a theme of light versus darkness, and it's a spiritual battle. Essentially, there is a lot of themes of darker themes in the show. But I feel like, there is a duality. Like people who do tarot cards, you see the devil, and that's like symbolic, of the Capricorn energy. You see the tarot card, and you see the devil. It's always there. Of the devil, or the evil, it's always been somewhere in mankind and throughout the world as evil, as something that's to be feared. And I think that is also speaking to us as an individual ourselves. We all carry a light side and a dark side. There's a light side, and there's our shadow self, which is the darker side. And the world can't exist without the world wouldn't exist without evil, and without evil, good, without good in the world, evil wouldn't exist. So there has to be a balance. It's like the yin, the yang, good versus evil, and it's a spiritual battle. And Sabrina, Kiernan, in this show, she plays a good witch. She's a good witch, but her family and everyone around her are not so good. They do things, that are a little darker in nature to seek revenge, and they serve, darkness. And it's like darkness wants Sabrina's soul. They want her, her abilities and stuff. They want her, to go onto the dark side, but she refuses to. And I'm not going to give too much like away, because like I said, those of you that haven't seen it, it's not fair to you. But for those of you that have seen it, you would be understanding, because I've seen this actually twice. I've looked at it twice. Being a light worker, and an empath, very sensitive to energies. I'm not gonna lie, there was some situations in there that kind of made me not want to look at it, because like when it comes to blood and sacrifices and stuff like that, it is kind of morbid, and I don't like seeing people cutting their hands. It's kind of dark, and it kind of makes me kind of wheezy. But I had to look at it. I was drawn to it for a reason. I feel like the time that people that would be listening to this, well, why, it's a lot of darkness, and it makes you dark if you listen or you look at the show. It's like mind programming. I've seen a lot of, situations of people, making these comments. I've read things online, people making these comments, and that's all fear-based, fear-based teachings to not, look into the show and give it a chance to understand, what the theme is about it, and how it relates. All of the things that are being displayed in the show relate to things that maybe people like yourselves out there that would be listening to this would have gone through. There's a lot of themes of, betrayal from and cliques, like for females that would be listening, like Mean Girls and those shows, and people that have been in schools where, you have a set group of girls and they go against someone who's new, or they just want to, treat you differently because you're different. There's a lot of bullying that goes on. This show talks about a lot of the bullying, and putting a stop to bullying, and putting a stop to being harassed by a lot of people through the use of magic. And also it gives a lot of people insight into the world of spirits. There is an episode in the show that is a group of children that have been killed. They've been killed, and they come to the aid of Sabrina in many ways, and she befriends them, and they're children, and it's like these are themes and things. The writer of the show is an excellent writer. I feel like he really took it to a place where it's balanced. It's not all dark. The depictions, and a lot of the things that you see on the commercials, and maybe like the trailers, the advertisements of it does look a little dark, but there is definitely a balance between light and dark, and Sabrina is definitely the light. I know those of you that would be listening at the end of the show, what she does of season 1, the last episode, what she has to do. I think many people would, say, well, she's evil, because she does what she does. And I'm talking almost in cryptic, because I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it. But you have to understand, a lot of people do that. You've probably done that yourself, not in that capacity, but in the, you know, in a situation where sometimes people have betrayed you, or or you're trying to, it's like the ultimate sacrifice of, you trying to help the world become a better place. For those of you that are light workers, you would understand this. We are human, even though, we are light workers, we're not always at the point where we're just happy and, jumping up and down, and just, life is, full of rainbows, and, you know, and just everything is good, and, you just feel so happy every day. That's not the case. Every light worker, has their own battles that they're going through. Every day you can get pissed off, and you may start cussing at people, and that's like kind of like the theme behind it. I mean, at least that's the way that I saw it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's the way I was able to kind of relate to the show. There's a lot of battle between good and darkness, but ultimately I feel like there is a lot of goodness, and I feel like, the characters, my favorite characters, automatically right off the bat, is Sabrina, of course. She's number one, and then Ambrose. I don't know if anyone else likes Ambrose, but he's a really awesome character, and he plays, I believe, her cousin there on the show. So, oh, and Salem, he's he's a cat, but I don't know. I just love Salem. He protects Sabrina in many situations as her familiar, and I've always had a love for cats. I'm a cat lover, so I could really connect to that, and it talks about curses. These are actual situations. People that listen to curses are like, well, that curses don't really exist. It's only what you give power into. But curses are very real, and they do exist. And witches do use them sometimes, to defend themselves, and to, sometimes for a darker place and darker intent. But I can identify to a lot of the stuff that is being shown. It was like watching Charmed, the reboot, how the reboot of Charmed should have been in the first place. And I don't know, again, this is just my opinion. But yeah, I feel like, and with Kiernan, the psychic insights that I get is that she's a wonderful actress. She's 18 years old. Her birthday was just on November the 10th. So she's 18 years old. She is a wonderful actress, and she is going to have a good career. I feel like this show is actually going to be very successful. I do feel like it will have more than 2 seasons. It will do very well. It's doing very well now, and so many people really like the show. I like the show. I don't see, any negativity to it. I know that there are some darker themes, but it's just like watching a horror movie. If you go to a show, a movie theater, and you see a lot of these, The Conjuring, or you see a lot of these shows about, that are darker, it's similar to that. But like I said, there's a lot of lightness to it, a lot of good. And Sabrina's role, or Kiernan's role, brings a lot of this to the light, and Ambrose as well, and even Aunt Hilda and Zelda, they also have a lot of the Spellmans. They have a lot of light in the family, even though a lot of them are kind of like, Zelda's like the darkest one out of the Spellman family, I feel, in her character. But Aunt Hilda is like Sabrina's protector, the one that is more light filled, and she doesn't like to partake in a lot of the stuff, but she does, either way. But overall, I feel like Kiernan is going to have success with this show. There's going to be other opportunities that open up to her. I do feel like they are going to, like they do with most, female actresses and stuff, it's going to be a show in which there's going to be controversy. I feel like with season 2, it's going to go to a darker place, but also it's going to show that, show us, I do feel, this is my psychic insight, that, even though she has, gone into a darker place, because that's where it ends on season 1, on the last episode, that she's actually going to go into the new season, season 2, kind of explaining more, or showing more of how she is going to use magic, and use the powers that she has now that have evolved from where she began in the beginning of the show. She's going to use them and still have some kind of light there. I don't feel like she's all going to be all bad and out to hurt people, even though I feel that there's a conflict between who she's going to be serving. Because, her thing was, and without giving too much away, how she was going to use her abilities. She wanted to use them for the good, not to hurt anyone. And I feel like very much so that's what we're going to see. We saw in season 1 the good Sabrina. Yes, she did, go to the dark side for a little bit, to teach people a lesson. And you'll understand what I'm saying by that. Also, you know, um, I don't know, but the African American girl, I can't Ross, or I can't remember her name offhand. I'm very bad at names. I love her. I think she's really good. She's the one with the glasses, and her grandma dies. And she has psychic insight. She's a clairvoyant. She has visions. But I don't know if they identify her as, and I've seen this show twice already, back to back. So it's like, I should know this, so I apologize. But I feel like Ross is actually a witch herself. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know. I feel like she has witch abilities, or maybe in a past life she was a witch. But she does have a lot of psychic abilities, and I feel like she has powers that she hasn't even tapped into, and that her character will be tapping into in helping Sabrina in season 2. So season 2, I can't wait. I wish it was already out. I want to see more of it. This show has like a lot of people hooked where it ends, and it has people like wanting already to know what is coming up. But like I said, I feel like Kiernan is going to have some success. It's not going to have some. She's going to have a lot of major success outside of the show. In other projects, I feel like there's going to be movies that she's going to be in, maybe even shows, like guest starring in certain shows. There's a lot. Her career is barely at its in the beginning stages, and it's going to just take off. I know that she's always been in it, even as a child, immersed into that world. But I feel like she's gonna, what I get from Spirit is that she's gonna take off her career. And a lot of the actors that are in there, and actresses, are going to take off, definitely. The only thing that I, have to, kind of critique, that I can't relate to, or I just really found it a little odd, was that the writer, chose to do a lot of the spells in Latin. And I know some Latin, not much, basic things, basic words and stuff. But I just wish they would have done a lot of the spells or incantations in English, like charm, and I feel like the Charm reboot also has that. They've done a lot of the spells in Latin, and it's kind of, hard. But I feel like in certain ways that follows like true darker spells. Darker, I'm not familiar with, the dark stuff, the darker things, but I believe, I do believe, because I've read a lot of books in my time, about the occult and things like that. So I do believe like a lot of the darker spells and stuff that are, more of the darker side would be in Latin. There would be written in Latin, and I feel like also it follows like Catholicism in many ways, because when it comes to like exorcism, a lot of that is in Latin as well. A lot of things, in the olden times were more written in Latin. So it's like a language. I know back in the 90s, the high schools and stuff used to offer like Latin courses. I never took one, but some people did, and I don't know if schools nowadays offer Latin courses, but it's a very interesting language. Like most of the terminology, medical terminology, I believe, and scientific of the species and stuff, it's written in Latin, I believe, and I believe they call it like the universal language. So I mean, I don't know, but I just found it very odd that they would do it in Latin. I wish that would change, and they would do it more in English. There are some things that they do say in English and whatnot, but it's just very, very interesting how all of this is going to play out. But I do feel like Sabrina is, even though her character is embedded in this shroud, that she is kind of like forced in many ways to go into the darker side. I do feel like she still has her free will, and she's still going to fight evil, and try to do the greatest good that she can with her gifts. But we are going to see a little bit of the darker Sabrina, in season 2. But I also feel like there's going to be moments in season 2 where she shows that she's not fully controlled by her family and by the people that, that she has taken an oath with, so to speak, by doing what she did at the end of season 1. And again, I'm talking a lot of cryptic for those of you that would be listening, because I don't want to ruin it for you. But yeah, this is my take overall on the show. Do I like certain things about the show that are darker, that talk about darkness? Not necessarily. No, I don't like it, and it does, affect in a certain way, seeing a lot of the darker things. But by being exposed to that, I feel like it's bringing a lot of light into what is happening in the real world, what is happening now in the real world, like, all the political things and all the, the killings and the terrorists, that are out there. And, in many ways, I think a lot of people, if you give it a chance, you'll be able to see and appreciate the writing of the show and the acting. Above all, the acting. The actors are really great, and the actresses, they are all spectacular. And it is funny. There are certain things, it's not all gloom and doom. There are some things that are funny when it comes to Sabrina, and they do have like a sense of humor in certain places. Yeah, I mean, it's a different show. It's not something that I would, would have expected Netflix to have. I've been watching a lot of other, shows on Netflix. Some of them were like older shows, but a lot of, newer ones. And yeah, I just love a lot of the paranormal stuff and a lot of things that are like more witch shows, because I feel like, that helps me better understand myself, and also I can relate to it. I did a video quite back some time that I received a lot of backlash on my channel. It was called Witchcraft Symptoms, and in it, I talked about dark magic and the effects that it could have on people. And I got a lot of backlash from witches out, in the witch community, and thinking that I'm against witches in general, and it's not the case, because hello, I'm one, I was a witch in a past life, and in this life I'm a good witch. I use more of the white magic and white, I believe in that, and the holistic approach to it, like candles and herbs. So I don't do anything that's dark, and yeah, so a lot of people, were judging me harshly, that I was talking bad about witches, and I'm not. I don't condone dark magic, and I don't condone, and I still stand true to that. I don't like it, and there's people, that's my opinion, that's my set of beliefs. There are witches that are solitary witches, and there's witches that are into gray magic and darker things, black magic and things like that, and I don't believe that that's good. That's just my opinion. I know people that would be listening to this that are witches, that would be saying, well, sometimes it's necessary to do certain things, but I also believe in the free will of humanity. And when it comes to like love spells and doing things like that, to try to kind of, get people to be not so much manipulated, but to draw them into, force them. You can't force somebody to love you. You can maybe do a love spell to draw love towards you, to usher that in. But if you're targeting a certain person and trying to go against their free will, that's when I have an issue with that, and I don't feel like that. I do feel like a lot of people do that. There's a lot of men and women alike that do, witchcraft, and they do take it to a darker place to force things upon people. But if you're trying to like manifest abundance and bring money, or like a new car or a new apartment, or you're doing a binding spell. Sometimes it is necessary to bind people that are being negative, or that are other witches out there that are using dark magic against you. And if you're a white witch, sometimes it's very necessary to do a binding spell and do binding. So this again are just my opinions and my beliefs when it comes to witchcraft and the show. But I definitely am very much excited about the chilling adventures of Sabrina, and I can't wait to see more of the show, more seasons, and just see her character grow and evolve. And I feel like she's going to wow a lot of people, and there's going to be a lot of witches out there that are looking at the show and can relate in many ways to what is going on. So yeah, give me your thoughts and your opinions, but please keep it civilized. Don't attack me. I'm just giving you my review. You don't have to agree with it, but yeah, I want to know, what are your thoughts about the show? Please don't bash the characters. Again, they're just actors and actresses, and they're playing a role. But let me know what you think of the show. Did you enjoy it? Who's your favorite character? What do you feel like is going to happen in season 2? Give me your psychic insights. I'm kind of playing around with this, and I want to see, what you see for season 2. I think it's going to be fun and exciting, and yeah, I just would like to know. So if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like to book a psychic reading with me, you can go to my website. That's www.raymondguzman.net/shop. And also be sure to check out my new book. It's called Starseed Footsteps. And it's a book that talks about the occult, what happens when we die, souls, crystals, twin flames, and a lot of other good topics. And for those of you that are now starting off on a new spiritual path, or maybe you've been on it quite some time and you have some questions, I take each chapter, and each chapter covers a certain thing. There is a table of contents. So if you like to skip through it, and just kind of go to the main chapters, you can see the main chapters, and kind of just go to that chapter and read, and kind of navigate it. But yeah, it's getting a lot of positive reviews, and if you'd like an autographed copy, you can order it off of my website. I do have them in stock, and it's basically my signature, and I write you a personal message. If you'd like to have it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, you wouldn't get an autographed copy, but it is a little cheaper if you want to do that. Mine is a little bit more because it is an autograph, and again, I have to factor in the shipping costs and whatnot. But mine is $25 if you want to get the autographed copy. On Amazon, it's $15.99, and Barnes & Noble as well. So blessings and love and light. Have an amazing day.